When you're spinning round, things coming down. Welcome to Earth, third rock from the sun.
Alright, welcome back, young scholars. In this video, we'll be discussing the long essay question, the LEQ on causation. So the AP test features one long essay question. There are 3 LEQ types based upon the 3 historical thinking skills, but it's really important to start thinking about these LEQs as just one type of essay because they really are essentially the same in terms of their structure and format. And so the 3 LEQ types are causation, which focuses on cause and or effects, comparative, which focuses on similarities and differences, and then the CCOT, which focuses on the continuities and changes over time. So you are given a choice between 3 prompts on the AP test that focus on the same theme or skill. So the same theme may be they're all about social characteristics, or they're all about culture, or they're all about economic characteristics. And they also focus on the same skill. So they'll all 3 be either a CCOT or a comparative or a causation essay. But they're each pulled from a different time period. So the first option will be pulled from period 1 and 2. The second option will cover period 3 and 4. And the third option will cover period 5 and 6. You are given approximately 40 minutes to complete the LEQ. And the reason I say approximately is because you're given both the LEQ and the DBQ at the same time. And it's up to you to decide how to allocate your time. Now the LEQ counts for about 15% of your total score. Now, LEQ essays are scored on a, what was that number again, Bert and Ernie?
When someone says, hey, Bert, pick a number, well, I always pick the one nobody picks. My favorite number is 6.
You know, I hate to break this to you, Bert, but 6 isn't anybody's favorite number.
That's my favorite number, Ernie.
So it's a 6-point rubric. And here's how you score those 6 points. Really important to understand how you get the points. So first, you can earn a point for contextualization, which describes the broader historical context relevant to the prompt, and I'll have more on contextualization later. The second point can be scored for having a solid thesis. A thesis responds to the prompt with a historically defensible claim that establishes a clear line of reasoning. There are 2 points for evidence on the LEQ. The first is if you provide specific examples of evidence relevant to the topic, and the second is if you then take it a step further and then support your argument using that specific and relevant evidence. The 5th point is for historical reasoning. So you use historical reasoning when you frame or structure your argument. And this will many times revolve around whether if it's a causation essay, you're giving multiple causes, or if it's a comparative essay, you're not only identifying similarities if that's what they ask for, but also differences. And in a CCOT essay, if maybe they ask for changes, you also address some continuities. The last point is the complex understanding point, and there's a number of different ways to get this, and we'll talk about this later, but you use evidence to corroborate, qualify, modify an argument. You're ultimately trying to build some connections outside just the framework that's provided by the prompt. So step 1, once you receive the LEQ essay, you are going to read all 3 of the prompts. You are going to decide which of those prompts that you want to respond to. Let's say you choose this prompt. Evaluate the extent to which the environment was affected by humans' transition to agriculture in the period 8000 BCE to 600 BCE. So the next step, once you've selected a prompt, is to read it again and really focus on the key words that you need to make sure you're honing in on. So in this particular prompt, my feeling, the most single important word in this prompt is probably affected, because it ensures that you're focusing on the proper thing, which is the effects and not the causes. This is a causation essay, but a causation essay that ultimately wants you to focus first and foremost on the effects. It's the effects of what? Well, the effects of humans' transition to agriculture. So hopefully you understand that what they're asking about is the Neolithic Revolution or the Agricultural Revolution. And then it's not just any effects they want you to focus on. They want you to focus on those environmental effects. So we're in the eye of our spice theme. And then the time period here is 8000 BCE to 600 BCE. So we're exclusively in the time period of period 1. Now let's look at this other prompt. Evaluate the extent to which the external factors caused imperial decline and collapse in the period 600 BCE to 600 CE. Using that same process we just had, identify what you think are the most critical words. So I think the most critical word here is caused, because in this case they want you to focus more on the causes. The causes of what? Well, the causes of imperial decline and collapse. Why did empires in period 2, this classical age, why did they ultimately fall? The qualifying thing that they want you to really focus in on this time are those external factors. Now, does this mean that you can only focus on external factors? No, as we'll find out. You can also talk about internal factors, because here they're asking, evaluate the extent to which. So not only is it the external factors that are relevant, but you could also identify internal factors which you may make the case are more important to the eventual decline and collapse of these empires. Again, our time period here is 600 BCE to 600 CE, so we're exclusively in period 2, the classical age. So once you've really broken down that prompt, the next step is to start to create a flow chart and try and identify in a causation essay as many causes or effects as you can think of. So here we have our event. And then depending on what they're asking for, and again, they could be asking for causes and effects, so in which case you have to address both. But let's just say they ask for, like this one, the effects. So you're going to then fill out the effects side of your flow chart by trying to identify as many, in this case, environmental effects that came about as a result of the transition to agriculture. Now what about this one? Evaluate the extent to which the external factors caused imperial decline and collapse. Well, then you'll be filling out the other side of your flowchart, the causes side of your flowchart, identifying as many causes of imperial decline and collapse as you can think of. And again, you want to try and focus mainly on external factors, but you also may want to also address internal factors in order to more completely answer the question. So once you've generated that flow chart, the next step is then to put those claims together into what's known as a thesis. So your next step is to write a thesis. Now, the thesis must present a historically defensible claim, or as you'll see, kind of a connections of series of claims. It must establish a clear line of reasoning. Those are the two qualifying requirements to get the point on the thesis. So it must, in a causation essay, if they ask for both causes and effects, address both causes and effects, or like the two that we've just looked at, if it just asks for causes or effects, you're only going to address one or the other most likely. So it must be in the first paragraph. The thesis, in order to get the point, must be in the first paragraph or a specified conclusion. And what that means, the specified conclusion part, is if you're writing, let's say you have a thesis and then you write the body paragraphs and you realize as you're writing the body paragraphs that your claim has sort of changed or shifted a little bit. Well, then what you need to do is when you get to that last paragraph, you need to write the words in conclusion. And then what you need to do is restate your thesis. Now, don't rewrite it exactly the same because you either got the point or you didn't in your introductory paragraph. The point of the specified conclusion is to rework, restate, clarify your thesis so that it possibly could get that thesis point. And then this may be one sentence, a thesis, or it could be multiple sentences. Generally speaking, I like multiple sentences because it creates a little depth and complexity in your thesis, as we'll see in a second. Now, if possible, whenever you're crafting a thesis, you want to try and follow the rule of 3. So you want to try and establish 3 subclaims. So hopefully the list that you've brainstormed, you identified multiple causes or multiple effects. I really encourage you to use keywords from the prompt. You only are given 40 minutes to write one of these essays. You can't, though, just simply restate the prompt. You have to add value. So, for example, if the prompt is evaluate the extent to which the environment was affected by humans' transition to agriculture, you can't just say the environment was affected by humans' transition to agriculture in a variety of ways. You have to then go on to specify. Now, there's a template for this. I really like this one. I think it works pretty well, and it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be set in stone for every cause and effect essay, but generally speaking, this one may work for you. So I like to start off with the time period. So during the time period, in this case, 8000 BCE to 600 BCE, what's our spice theme here? The environmental effects is what they're asking for of the event, in this case humans transition to agriculture, were effect A and effect B. Now, really critically important, in order to create a complex thesis, to score some of those extra complexity points, it's important that you then identify a qualifying statement, or a word that shows that you understand the nuances of the various arguments. So you need a however, and then you want to make either a qualifying statement or identify some alternative effect. And we'll see some examples of that in a second. So an example, let's look at this one. During the period of 8000 BCE to 600 BCE, the major environmental effects of the transition to agriculture were the use of water and the spread of crops. However, these did not affect everyone. How do we feel about this? It uses the template. The one thing I like is, again, it's focusing on environmental effects. It's talking about water and crops. And then the real problem, though, and I don't think this probably would have gotten the point, although it might be close, is that it's not very specific. So it just says the use of water. Well, all humans were using water, so how is that really in effect? And the last statement, these changes did not affect everyone. Well, of course, every single event does not affect everyone. So that's not a specific enough statement. Look at this one by contrast. During the period of 8000 BCE to 600 BCE, the major environmental effects of the transition to agriculture were the development of new water control systems and the spread of domesticated plants and animals from various cradles of farming. However, these changes were limited to the regions where farming was practiced. Consequently, there were fewer environmental effects in the regions where pastoralism was practiced or hunting and gathering continued. A couple of spelling errors there, but I think this one would get the point. It's a lot more clear on the effect of the development of new water control systems and the spread of domesticated plants and animals. And it's also a lot more clear on the qualifying effect here to say, well, wait a second, although there were these major environmental effects, they were actually relatively limited in terms of their geographic scope. So take a look at this one again. Evaluate the extent to which the external factors caused imperial decline and collapse in the period circa 600 BCE to 600 CE. Now, using your template during the time period, the sort of spice theme or whatever thing they want you to focus in on that caused the event were cause A and cause B. However, then try and identify a qualifying cause. So take a minute to do that. So maybe you came up with something along the lines of during the classical age or during the period of 600 BCE to 600 CE, the major external factors that caused the decline of and collapse of empires were the spread of diseases into those empires and maybe the invasion by nomadic peoples. However, although there were many external causes, there was also a number of internal causes, such as some internal rebellions that came about as a result of increasing gaps between the rich and the poor. Hopefully this gives you some idea of how to craft a thesis statement. Now, in the next video, we will move on and identify some of the other steps involved in the long essay question process. Thanks for watching. All right, welcome back, young scholars. In this video, we'll be discussing the long essay question, the LEQ on causation. So the AP test features one long essay question. There are 3 LEQ types based upon the 3 historical thinking skills, but it's really important to start thinking about these LEQs as just one type of essay, because between 3 prompts on the AP test that focus on the same theme or skill. So the same theme, maybe they're all about social characteristics, or they're all about culture, or they're all about economic characteristics. And they also focus on the same skill, so they'll all 3 be either a CCOT or a comparative or a causation essay. But they're each pulled from a different time period. So the first option will be pulled from period 1 and 2, the second option will cover period 3 and 4, and the third option will cover period 5 and 6. You are given approximately 40 minutes to complete the LEQ, and the reason I say approximately is because you're given both the LEQ and the DBQ at the same time. They really are essentially the same in terms of their structure and format. And so the 3 LEQ types are causation, which focuses on cause and or effects, comparative, which focuses on similarities and differences, and then the CCOT, which focuses on the continuities and changes over time. So you are given a choice between